Yeah, I was wondering why the groundwater stuff. Thank you. Are you going home right after this? Probably. I didn't make it. The phone to charge. You might have to, we're gonna go play with it. We might have to get someone else. Yeah, because it's same thing.
It's just wacky, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
not consistently working.
I'll move it this morning. I like your bug. The ingredients.
It was from my youngest son for Mother's Day last year.
Okay. So we're talking about making it was for the weed challenge. The weed challenge. Oh, which weeds? Yeah, I never used the fucking scrap. No, scratch is like a, you can make, they, but that might be something if we ever want to go further with it, I don't know if you ever used it. So, we'll work with it. Yeah. 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 Now we're back to this from 4 days. We had a VR set and wasn't like the students couldn't quite figure it out. So I was like, they're gonna take off like a weekend. It was too much fun. Okay.
Boise had 100,000. Actually, didn't have money.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Bill Tarver, and I'd like to call the meeting to the Energy and Environmental to order. Could you please do roll call?
Okay, Allen. Caius,
Caius present.
Genesis,
Hennis is present.
Strathman,
Strathman here.
Young.
Here.
Tarver,
But he's logged on.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. Better. I don't see any requests for remote attendance. So next up would be the approval of the minutes from the January 17th, 2025. Can I get a
Mr.
motion?
Chairman, this is Chris Caius. I would ask for unanimous consent for the approval of the minutes from January 17th, 2025.
All in favor?
My birthday.
Yes, I was gonna say that.
Thank you very much.
Is it your birthday today?
A month ago.
Oh, okay. Happy
17th.
birthday belated.
Next up are public comments. Mr. Young, I have you listed as public comments.
David Young.
The National Clean Investment Fund announced on the EPA website on April 2024. It's a $20 billion fund for clean energy solutions. Just a few days ago, February 19th, DOGE, the famous DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, discovered that the Biden EPA awarded $2 billion to a firm linked to Stacey Abrams. If you don't know who she is, she's a very, very powerful Democrat figure in the state of Georgia. This $2 billion award was given to a company called Power Forward Communities, founded in October of 2023, part of a coalition called Rewiring America. What's weird about this is that Power Forward Communities was founded in October of 2023. It's associated with Stacey Abrams. And then the same month, October of 2023, it was awarded a $2 billion grant from the EPA. Think about that. Amazing. And then August of 2024, just less than a year later, they're receiving money from this $2 billion grant. You can't make this stuff up. From Stacey Abrams' Twitter X account, thrilled to be a part of @Rewiring America and Power Forward Communities coalition. This is how we expand access to clean energy by prioritizing housing, equity, and resilience. We are building a future where everyone, regardless of income or place, can thrive. Power Forward Communities describes itself as the first national program to finance home energy efficiency upgrades at scale, claiming to help homeowners, developers, and renters swap outdated, inefficient appliances with more efficient and modernized options, saving money for years ahead and ensuring our kids can grow up with cleaner, gluten-free air. I love the thing when they call out the kids. We're doing it for the kids, right? Ensuring our kids can grow up with a cleaner, pollutant-free air. Well, Lee Zeldin is now taking over the EPA administrator, so we'll see how this plays out. We'll see if these funds even get distributed throughout this the 7-year period. And how does that affect Illinois? Well, it looks like the Illinois Green Alliance received over $100 million from this National Clean Investment Fund. So we'll see if that goes through too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Good time.
Moving on next would be a report from Ms. Volnick.
Thank you. Just a second. I'm going to share this screen here, hopefully.
I just Googled. It's on every news.
There we go. I just have a quick report, an update on the Kane County Groundwater Monitoring Network. This is one of our projects that were funded.
Ms. Well, can you speak
speak a
right
little
into the
closer?
microphone?
Sorry.
It's okay.
This was one of our projects that were funded by the ARPA funding. And it's establishing a monitoring well network throughout Kane County. So we can drought monitor our shallow aquifer systems, as well as add data into our groundwater model to more accurately show the sustainable water supply we have here in Kane County. I did notice this morning, for some reason, the link, this website did not come through on the packet. So I will send that out to the committee after this. But I just wanted to show you the site here. There's just a little bit of background. And then we have down at the bottom here, as we add the monitoring wells, there will be 15 in total as of December of 2026, when the ARPA funding is complete. We have the Sugar Grove Township Water Authority wells listed on here as well. But the ones above here, these real-time monitoring, well, my cursor is like jumping all over the place. These are the ones that were funded by ARPA. So you can hover over any of these. The locations are, many of them are in the Kane County Forest Preserves. They were existing wells that we're reusing and we're putting the telemetry on them. And then once you click on them, it should open a web page here that shows you the location of the well, as well as the current trends and the observed water levels. So, oops, it's kind of jumping all over the place. But we are seeing, like in all the monitoring wells, because we have had a moderate drought through the last about a year, that we are down about 4 feet in our shallow groundwater. So I just had that to report, and I will send out the web link for everyone to play around with.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
Question, Roth here. Jody, what type of what information is captured? Like how much water is available? Does it capture like salinity?
It does not. Some of the Sugar Grove wells do. They have been monitoring chlorides in their wells. But our telemetry is only the depth from the ground surface to the water level. And so during drought periods, we'll be able to see how low those aquifers are drawing down because of the drought as well as the usage in that system.
And are those deep aquifers or those shallow aquifers?
They're all shallow aquifers.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Mr. Grape, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have information, obviously, if there's a drought, the water level, so to speak, the blue line here is going down. What do we do with this? Other than know that it's going down and maybe there's a drought, what action do we take?
Well, certainly, it's useful for our neighbors that have their own individual wells to know how bad it is getting during a drought period. Because the last thing you want is a neighbor to be watering their grass and another neighbor next door can't even turn on the water to shower. So it'll be helpful for the public to look at kind of during those drought periods to monitor their water use. But we're also using it on the other ARPA funded project, which I will have a report in the coming months, which is our shallow groundwater model. And that model is being worked with the Illinois State Water Survey and all of our communities and their future planning efforts and what they plan to have in our shallow groundwater resources, because we already know that Kane County is using way too much deep groundwater. And so our shallow groundwater supply is a potential backup for that system that's being overused. And so what they're currently using, the data, it's being fed into the model. And so they're using the data to calibrate the model. So in some areas of the shallow aquifer system, we have enough publicly owned wells that are being monitored that we can tell that the model is giving us the correct results out to 2050. But in other areas, we had gaps in that data. And so we wanted to make sure that where we were putting these monitoring wells were where we had those gaps in the data. So then we can run the model and then we can utilize the actual data that we're getting back to make sure the model is well calibrated.
Okay, so we have a model. It's calibrated to 2050. I don't know how we could do that, but my house is on a well. Okay, so at what point do I look at this and say, well, I should start yelling at my neighbors because they're watering their lawns or they're taking showers too long, or I'm not sure how this information could be used to the public. They wouldn't know what to do with it to, to start protesting their neighbors for using too much water. And I know if my neighbor told me that, I'd say, it's my well. When it goes dry, it's my problem. But, we try to conserve water, but I guess I'm curious, all this stuff, we got all this data, but if the public doesn't know what to do with it or how to start addressing their neighbors' overuse, I'm not sure where this goes.
And that's part of our charge is to once we get all of the 15 monitoring wells in and the data from the model back, is to help educate the individual landowners that have those wells on the use of this data and how they can use it and how they can apply it in their situation. So it's part of the education portion of what will be coming out of the project.
Okay, to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gripe. Any other, yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Pettis?
one other question. The monitoring started then in March 2024?
Correct.
Okay. And do we have any idea, like previously, how this compares, those levels, seen those drop? Obviously, we've been in a drought. How those compare previously? I'm assuming we're seeing a drop. Do we have any kind of data that shows us what?
If you do go to, if you go to the Sugar Grove townships, those have been running for several years. And so like definitely pull up some of those, and they have longer data sets, and they will show you those trends, those yearly trends. So we'll get there with our data, but our data is very new. But the Sugar Grove data has additional years. I think they're up to maybe 5 years of data.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Walnick.
Thank
you. And moving on next then, Ms. Ryan. There's a resolution and also a review in 2024. Which would you like to do first?
I'll do the resolution first.
Okay. Would you like me to read it?
Oh, no, I don't think sorry. We've had illness going through.
Mr. Chair, this is Caius. I would move the resolution supporting state legislation amending the reauthorization of, is that the one? Consumer Electronics Recycling Act?
Okay,
And I will second.
thank you. Discussion, please.
I can give some just context of this. I think it's helpful to know just a little bit about the history of electronic recycling in Illinois. So there was a law passed that included a landfill ban for 14 very common types of electronic, consumer electronic equipment, stuff pretty much everyone has in their house these days, televisions, cable boxes, that kind of thing. And there was a program or a law and a program called the Illinois Electronic Products Recycling and Reuse Act that was passed coinciding with that landfill ban to start a program funded by electronic manufacturers, at least in part, to collect and recycle those items. That law had some structural problems that kind of became apparent. So it had weight-based limits written into it, and they were based on manufacturers' sales like the year before. So for example, just say I'm Toshiba, the amount I have to recycle is based on the weight of material I sold into the state the year before. And the problem with that is that the items everyone was trying to recycle were much, much older and much, much heavier than the ones being sold to generate those limits. And what was happening all the time is that the program would shut down about halfway through the year. They'd say, we reached our weight limit. Counties, you can either stop collecting electronics or you can find another way to fund the recycling. Which that created a lack of predictability, very, huge problems budgeting. It was not working. And so the counties and kind of came back to the state and said, this isn't really working, and worked with the IEPA to pass the Consumer Electronic Recycling Act, which it's similar in what it aims to do, but it's very different in structure. It does not have those weight-based limits. This was 2015 that passed, but it's an opt-in program. So that's kind of how they got into that limit of what they're paying for, is they're kind of assuming not every county is going to opt in to participate. Because it is a shared responsibility program. The manufacturers fund for packaging material. So like if you drive by Fabian and you see all the pallets and the boxes and that kind of stuff, Electronic manufacturers actually pay for those. They pay for the transportation costs, so the trucking and the physical recycling. But counties are left to pay for the physical infrastructure to collect the stuff. So the space and the storage, temporary storage, and then equipment. So like we have a forklift out there that's not funded through the program. And then all the labor. So yeah, so some counties don't opt in, but we have, and it has worked for us. We do fund that labor and equipment through a fee that's charged to residents for recycling televisions. So when Sarah was passed, it had a sunset date in it because it was sort of an experiment. We knew our past paradigm didn't work. We're going to change the paradigm, but we need to revisit it in 5 years to make sure we didn't mess up again. And kind of what we found is it works very well, at least for King County. And I think most of the other counties that are opted in. And there are some amendments in here, but none of them really affect what our program's going to do. So I won't kind of delve into them unless people really want me to. Nope. All right.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Ryan? Mr. Gripe?
Yes, thank you. So this is cool stuff. Are we promoting witness slips for this? And if so, how?
That would be the idea. Well, the goal of passing the resolution would be that the county, like either someone on staff or a chair of our committee could witness slip in favor of the legislation on behalf of the county. I don't really advocate outside of that for, I guess I never thought that was really the staff role to add.
Yeah, why, I mean, because witness slips, as I envision them, they're a bucket, right? And the thicker that bucket gets, the more the legislators look at it and go, ooh, there's a lot. So I would say we should communicate that, saying this is good stuff. And the more people that provide witness slips to support this, it's good for everybody. It's good for King County. So everybody in the county.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, any other questions, Mr. Gripe?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Strathman.
I was just going to say, we should not have just one person from the county do it. We should do, all of us put our vote in on this because this is a good House bill. And they do, like John said, they do keep track of them. And so the more we put in, the more weight it will have. So it's a good idea.
Okay.
And
Mr. Caius?
is there a link that you could send us for that? I've done a number of witness slips and the bill number and.
Yes, so the bill numbers are in here. I can send the link. I don't think you can submit a witness slip right now. It's usually right only before it has a hearing. Is that correct? I think. So I don't believe there's a scheduled hearing, but I can keep track of it and
Let us know.
let you know. Yeah.
Mr. Roth?
Yes, Roth here. At legislative this week, Ms. Gumbs offered individual training. Anyone wants to be trained on how to do witness slips. And it is an important way to get feedback to the legislators. So I'm planning on taking her up. I'll just refresh mine. And I think it's open as long as there's a bill number. You can do a witness slip, Claire.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but I'll try to confirm that with Ms. Gumbs.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's not a question, but to just Googled it. Yeah, as long as you have a House bill number, that's all you need. Yeah, House or Senate bill. So Google how to submit a witness slip. I mean, there you go. I did it.
All you have to do is do a search. Is it SB 2414? I don't have it in front of me right now, but go to the ilga.gov website and you do the search for that House bill. And it takes you right to the bill. And at the top there, they have witness slips. You can fill out. Very easy.
Pretty important.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the discussion. Could you call the roll, please?
Allen,
Aye.
Caius,
Yes.
Hennessis,
And it says, yes,
Strathman,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Carver.
Yes. Passes.
Great. All right. Now I have a quick presentation. So we like to talk about what the program accomplished in the previous year. I try and break it up because otherwise I go on forever. So this half is going to focus on household hazardous waste materials. So just a brief refresher of what these are. They're unwanted residuals of chemical containing products that were purchased for household use. Lots of pictures there of what they might be. Certainly some cleaners that are highly acid or basic are considered household hazardous waste. Pesticides, herbicides, fertilizer, certain types of batteries, motor oil, gasoline, aerosols, fire extinguishers, just all sorts of yucky stuff that, people are within their legal rights at the household level to put them in regular trash, but it sure would be better for the environment if they didn't. So the products tend to be hazardous on at least one of the main characteristics of hazardousness, which would be basically flammability, toxicity, corrosivity, or reactivity. Reactivity is if it's likely to interact with water or other common just elements of the environment and either explode or turn into something hazardous. So they do fall under the Federal Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, also known as RCRA, household exemption, unless state law is more stringent. Our state law tends to follow RCRA pretty closely for most things, but there are a few materials that the state does regulate. Mercury switches is one of them. Motor oil is probably the most common that would show up in a household. So that's prohibited from landfills in Illinois. Okay. So there are 3 household hazardous waste outlets essentially for Kane County residents. There's a Naperville drop-off facility. It is in the northwest corner of Naperville, so it's not as far as it might be. It's subsidized by IEPA and all of the surrounding counties, including us, and is open to all state residents without any fee to drop off material. It's open on a weekly basis every Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'll have some data about what they collected last year in just a minute. I also, my program manages a home pickup through a contractor. It's only available in eligible areas. It really started with the 6 northernmost townships, minus City of Elgin, because they're arguably the furthest away from that Naperville drop-off. However, we have allowed municipalities to essentially opt in if they want to. Batavia and Geneva have both done that. We included Mill Creek. We're in charge of their hauling contract, so that was easy to do. And then unincorporated Blackberry as well. And so if you're in the service area, you're entitled to 1 use per year. And there's no direct fee for service to the resident. Residents schedule an appointment essentially by phone or using an online form, and they can do that at any time of year. There is a weight limit of 70 pounds for all material except for latex paint. So people can put out latex paint, but it doesn't count towards their 70-pound limit. And then finally, there are some municipalities that have a service either directly through their hauler or sometimes through another contractor to do pickups specific to their municipality. So there are on-call pickups available directly through waste haulers in Elgin and Maple Park. Elgin just had a change in their waste service provider, but it was absolutely something they included in their bid. So the program is done a little differently since that change, but it's more or less the nuts and bolts are really the same. And then some do it on an event, like on an event basis. They'll they'll either have a once a year household hazardous waste kind of collection. I think that's what they do in East Dundee and Pingree Grove. And then other communities like Sugar Grove and Montgomery have kind of periodic collections. I think it's once a quarter for both of those. Okay, so here's some data from Naperville. There were 2,386 drop-offs by Kane County residents, which accounts for just over 10% of the total visits to the site. That's remarkably stable over the years. If you look at the data, it's always, bobbing around 10, 11% of the total visitation is from Kane County. And our residents disposed of 135,000 pounds of material. It's kind of hard to imagine what that is. So I like to use vehicles. Is equivalent weight of 4 large school buses. So lots of stuff. I always like to look at trends over time as well with this data. So we've got visits, which is the blue line, is on the left axis. And then weight over time is on the right axis. I have converted the weight to tons instead of pounds. And we see in 2024, so the visits they kind of bob around a little bit, but we're kind of probably around the average there of just under 2,500 visits for the year. And then the weight was up quite a lot from a low in 2022. So, the site is being used efficiently and a lot, so. Now some data from the home pickup program. So there were 468 program uses, which is actually a big increase over 2023, a 44% increase, and an average of 39 stops per month. So they were busy, but it definitely pushed at the upper limits of our budget for the program. We collected close to 30,000 pounds of material. That's about the equivalent weight of 1 large school bus. About 37% of that material was able to be recycled and 63% was incinerated. Somewhat unfortunate. We were closer to about half and half recycled versus incinerated last year, but it's really just a function of what people are putting out. Unfortunately, as much as I wish you could, you can't recycle fertilizer or pesticide in any real way. And that was the number one amount of material collected by weight. It was 60% of the total weight, and then 94% of the weight of material that was incinerated. So that's a lot. It's always my takeaway. Again, this is similar from year to year. Just people really overbuy lawn chemicals and house paint. If they move, they feel like they have to get rid of this stuff. And you want to pin the blame on people sometimes, but the thing is, the quantity options, you can't buy a tiny little bag of fertilizer if you have a postage stamp lawn. It's just not possible. You'd have to split it with your neighbors, and people just kind of tend not to do that. So they buy the big bag, they're going to use it over a number of years, but then they move, and it's unfortunate. So the number 2 material collected was latex paint, about 27% of all material by weight, and then 74% of all the material that was recycled was latex paint. Because the program had a big year, we really need to be vigilant. I mean, I'm paying attention every time I come across these invoices. I'm double checking, making sure everyone was program eligible, all the rest of it. But this year I'm working more proactively with the contractor to make sure we don't end up kind of having a cost overrun and needing to close the program towards the end of the year. This is just a snapshot of where people were calling from for those appointments. City of Batavia dominated. I think that switched from last year. City of Geneva was larger. South Elgin definitely used the program quite a lot this year. And then a lot of just kind of other smaller towns. And then here's our just program statistics again over time, very similar to the previous graph. Number of program uses, the axis on the left versus weight in tons on the right. You can see kind of that major jump in uses this year compared to last year. It was almost the biggest year for the program period. I think it was less, like 5 less than we had in 2020, which was the year when no one could leave the house. And our weight collected, it wasn't our highest year for weight collected, but it was, again, second highest. So a lot of material out of people's houses. This is a little bit of an aside, I guess, but it's another effort we make to keep nasties out of landfills. We have a program in cooperation with the Ace Hardware store up on State Street in Geneva to accept light bulbs, mostly fluorescent bulbs. We do also accept LEDs for free. There are definitely other outlets for those as well, but most of them charge a few cents per bulb to cover the cost of processing. So in terms of the mercury containing fluorescents, the Ace Hardware program collected about 2,400 4-foot tubes, 140 6 to 8 foot tubes, 1,100 compact fluorescent bulbs. Those are the twisty ones that look like brains, and other shapes. And it doesn't seem like a lot necessarily, because each one contains such a tiny little amount of mercury. Altogether about 13,300 milligrams of mercury. I mean, a milligram is a tiny amount, but that's enough mercury to pollute 1.75 million gallons of water.
Wow.
It's about 3 Olympic-sized pools. I meant to write that down. It's definitely many pools, so it's a lot of water. We do take LED lamps. So LED lamps contain lead solder. That's really the only hazardous component, but they have other recoverable material in them. They have tiny little circuits. So essentially like any other electronic, they have recyclable, recoverable components. We collected 805 LEDs. Those were mostly bulbs. We do get a few linear and odd shape LEDs as well, but it's mostly like the regular bulb replacements. And this year was actually 18% of our total, which was high. So I thought it would be kind of interesting to graph the percentage of LEDs from that program over time. And it looks almost like an exponential growth. So, LEDs are supposed to be long-lived. I personally sometimes find those claims overstated. But regardless of that, I think some of those bulbs that were sold 8, 9, 10 years ago are coming to the end of their lives and they're ending up in the recycling stream. So as a result of this, we're working with eWorks actually to see if they can process LED bulbs as electronics. They'd still come in through Ace Hardware and not go to the sites. They're very wary about light bulbs because people never know what type of light bulb they have, and they also don't like glass on the sites. So I'm gonna continue to collect them through Ace Hardware to make sure they're plastic and that they're sorted properly and they are all LEDs. And then we're going to see if they can shred those the way they do other small electronics. That'll save us maybe $500 a year in processing cost on the LEDs, so not nothing. There are some other non-trash options for bulbs, just FYI. The Household Hazardous Waste Program, so Naperville and the Pickup program will take the mercury-containing bulbs, so fluorescents essentially. And then retailers, as I mentioned, Batteries Plus will take anything, but they do charge per item. Lowe's only takes CFLs, and I believe Home Depot only takes CFLs as well. We do have a new vendor processing these TerraCycle regulated waste. They're actually based in Aurora. And I've been driving the bulbs from Geneva to Aurora to save us a little bit of money on transportation. So we used to pay like a $200 freight fee every time, so. I believe this is my last slide for this presentation. So just some miscellaneous data on mostly batteries and other assorted nastiness. So Elgin Township is actually the leader in the county for collecting batteries for the public. They use, I think, 4 kind of kiosk type contraptions with barrels in them. And they process over 10 tons of batteries every year, which is an enormous amount. At our one-day extravaganza, we took in just over 1 ton of mixed batteries. We collected an additional 2,000 bulbs and tubes at the extravaganza. About 6 tons of latex paint was collected through county events all year long. 864 pounds of aerosols. Those are sometimes empty, sometimes not. But even just the can itself is recyclable, but they don't really love them at the regular recycling sites due to the pressure, them being under pressure. And then 100 pounds of camp propane tanks collected through county events. I think that's what I had for that little overview. Does anyone have questions about household hazardous waste?
Mr. Roth?
Can you go back to page 64? Where you're talking, the question I had regarding the Ace store, it's only the Geneva Ace store on State Street?
So far, yeah.
Okay. Have we approached like Ace Corporation to see if we can get some sponsorship for like maybe all the Ace in Kane County? Because my experience in talking to the voters, it's a convenience. If it's readily available where they know to drop it off, they'll do it. Otherwise, it goes in the garbage.
That's probably very true. I have not. So Ace Hardwares are actually franchise.
I understand,
yeah.
but they're part of a corporation for buying purposes. And
Yeah. I mean, this program with the Geneva one was essentially just kind of a handshake deal
Right.
with the manager
Right.
of that store. It would be good if we could maybe try it elsewhere too, but yeah, but we'd have to budget for it for sure.
Thank you.
Well, I know that the owner of Aurora also owns Aurora in Batavia, so perhaps that there's multiple franchises
Right.
within one group.
Mhm.
So something to consider.
There's
Mr.
like,
Fences?
I think 3 or maybe even more that are owned by the same franchisee in the Elgin area as
Yeah.
well.
The Zieglers, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Could be worth exploring.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Gripe?
Not a question, but an offer. Claire, I know the 2 largest franchisees in King County personally.
Okay.
So if you want to reach out to me, I can connect you with them and they're pretty good people. So maybe that could go along the lines of what that's doing. I also know some people at Ace Corporate in Oak Brook. I used to work with them years ago, so I'd be glad to introduce you there.
It's all about networking.
Or we
Yeah.
could just take all the bulbs to the corporate headquarters and see what they do.
Yeah,
Surprise.
it does depend if they can manage space for it, because you do need like at least 4 big drums, lamp drums. But the Geneva one keeps the full ones in the basement and they just have one kind of in their stock room area, back of house, and it works okay. We got a lot of broken bulbs because they sometimes throw the CFLs into a lamp tube, which is not great, but it's what they have to do for space.
Well, thank you for the discussions.
Yeah.
Good opportunities. Anything else from Ms. Wright?
I do have one more thing I want to show, if you could bring that up, Blair. This is just kind of an FYI. So instead of doing the green guide every year, we've kind of gone to an every other year model, where in the off year, we're putting out something small, like either a flyer or a postcard. I did a postcard 2 years ago, so I'm doing it again. And this is the front of it. it really just highlights our events, our 2 shred events, and then the extravaganza. People can read more about those by scanning the QR code. And then the Saturday pop-ups, those are kind of halfway between a site and an event. It just talks about those a little bit and encourages people to make sure we're going to be in Aurora before they go. And then this is the other side, just a reminder about the recycling centers that are always there, but generally don't have weekend hours. And then Recycle Coach, which I gave a demo of, was it last month? It feels like half a year ago, but I think it might have been last month. So that's the web tool is now on our website and is also an app as well. And then the blank spot is for the recipient address for the ones we're mailing. So.
When will that go out?
Yeah.
It'll probably take about a month to get them all out.
Okay.
So end of March,
Your
everyone should
question,
have
Mr.
them.
Great.
Yeah, related to that, can we get some of these? Can we?
That was gonna be my request too. Could you
Yeah.
email out the PDF to us?
Yeah, I can email the PDF and then we'll be having probably at least 10,000 printed off. So
I'd like
can bring them.
some.
Yeah.
Stack.
Can bring a stack.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Then moving on to Ms. Hinshaw. Good morning.
Good morning. I am passing it on to Austin Powell today. He's taking the lead.
Good morning. First off, I have a resolution, TMP 25-233. This would be supporting state legislation incentivizing the use of finished compost and digestate on commercial and specialty farm operations. I do have some context for this. This is specifically to Senate Bill 1397 that was recently put forth in the Appropriations Committee. There are 5 pieces of context I'd like to give you all to this bill. First off, it would amend the Solid Waste Management Act to create a grant program that would incentivize the use of finished compost, liquid digestate, and solid digestate on private and public lands to use for commercial farm and specialty farm operations. The grant program would last 3 years through fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 28 with an annual fund of up to $2 million. Grant recipients would only receive a maximum award of $50,000 if they applied. And then for local farmers or private entities that wanted to be involved in getting this grant money, the grant would cover 90% of the cost associated with the purchasing, transporting, and applying that finished compost on their lands. And then finally, any grant recipients would also allow the Prairie Research Institute of the University of Illinois to study the use of compost and digestate.
Can I get a motion?
Strathman will move.
Alan seconds.
Alan seconds. Any discussion or any questions? Okay, call the roll.
Alan,
Ellen, I.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Hennessis,
Hennessis, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Young, Carver.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to see this progress and go along. I think this is long overdue. I'm happy to see it moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. And then any updates?
And then, yes, I had one more presentation related to the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act Workforce Hub. Perfect. Hopefully this works. Sweet. So for some background, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, or CEJA as I'll refer to it, was signed into law by Governor Pritzker in 2021. The main overarching theme of this bill, about like an 800, 900 page bill, it sets the goal of transitioning to 100% carbon-free power sector by 2050. The key piece that I wanted to speak about to that piece of state law today is what's known as the Clean Jobs Workforce Hub. This hub is meant to prepare people for entry-level clean energy jobs. It's really, if you're going to go to 100% carbon-free power sector, you got to have people who are willing to put up the solar panels, people to go into people's homes and do weatherization or update their homes to make it easier. So you have to build up a workforce to do that. And for this bill, the Workforce Hub sets out to 13 different cities across the state, with Aurora being one of them, where people will be trained to take on clean energy jobs. And also with CEJA, this is in part related to our own climate action implementation plan. Action CE 2-6 really specifies or recommends promoting workforce development in partnership with local schools, colleges, and universities throughout the county. So this supporting this workforce hub fits with our recommendations in the plan. Now, what is the Aurora Workforce Hub? So what happens is that the state chooses a qualified vendor to essentially administrate and run each of these educational programs throughout each of the 13 cities. Aurora has one that's been, I believe, partnered with the College of DuPage at this point, who are running it and creating the process for the folks who will go through this program. In this case, actually, my news to report is that the program starts on March 3rd and will run until about mid-May for this first cohort. So there's currently people who are signing up, and I don't have a clear number at this point of how many people have signed up or will be attending and participating. But the basic overview of what this program does is that it gives about 176 hours worth of bridge training to really build up a foundation for these folks to be able to enter that level of a clean energy job. It gives them an introduction to sustainable and clean energy practices, basic safety and first aid certifications, so an OSHA 10-hour certification, or CPR and first aid training. It also goes through core construction certifications, so teaching them about math used during construction time, introductions to like hand and power tools, as well as introductions to reading like blueprints. So being able to understand and work in that job site. Next, they go through a basic about 44 hours worth of learning the basics of like electricals, learning to work with that. And then finally, they get about 40 hours worth of essential skills. So not just simply getting the foundation of learning how to do the job, but be able to have that professional development in the future. So they're taught how to do resume writing, they'll be doing mock interviews, and they're also given financial literacy classes through this process. So for the people who are willing to sign up and will participate, they're offered $13 an hour as they go through this process. And then they're also, to make it easier for them to continue to participate, to learn and get to this next career, they're also offered access to childcare, transportation assistance, food support, and more. And currently through the Aurora's Workforce Hub, there are about 3 jobs that they're building up for these folks to take on. It could either be a solar PV associate, whether it's if you're wanting to work on the design of the PVs, the sales, the installation, or the operations, they can focus on that job. It could be a weatherization specialist, or you could also be an HVAC technician. So once you finish this 176 hours of bridge training, you can then either spread out into 2 choices here. You can do kind of like an internship, where currently the College of DuPage is working to find partners that can help provide that internship for those students. And then after you go through that, then you can go through a more a finalized process, which is more on the job training. And then you could be more specified in choosing one of these 3 routes if you choose to do so.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to just say, wow. That is really a cool program. I'm happy to hear about that. That has some real potential, I think. So thank you for letting us know about it.
Of course. And then the final slide I have here, just the 2 people who are in charge of this program in Aurora, Ms. Callie Matheny, who's the director, and Ms. Rebecca Barr. We've been in close contact with them. I believe Sarah and I had a Zoom meeting with them a month or 2 ago, or no, maybe it was last year actually, where they gave us this brief overview. And then I talked to Rebecca Barr about a month ago, getting updates on when the hub was going to occur. It is our goal in mind to bring one of them in within a couple months, probably towards the end of May or June, when they finish this first cohort, and they can come in with some results and updates of what went well, what didn't, and see how things go. Okay. And then finally on our end, it's really Sarah and I's goal just to promote this. So in our point, we already have a Kane County Connects article up, giving some review to our current efforts with the Climate Action Implementation Plan, and that action being specified in there. We have a social media post up on our Instagram page, and have also partnered with folks in Geneva to get that same Kane County Connects article in one of their newsletters. So our goal is really just to push this out. And that's all I have at this point.
Yes, Ms. Strathman.
I have one more quick question. If Aurora is the hub, is it limited to Aurora residents?
No, I believe it's for the entire county as far as I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Young?
You go back to that other slide. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, so it's 176 hours, and we're going to pay these people $13 an hour plus more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 176 times 13 hours is 2288. So we're going to pay them. We're paying the student to go to school, essentially. That's never heard of. But, and we're going to have 3 positions that we're going to have 3 positions at the end of this, right?
Yeah, that's what the state funded for what they're being offered. And then those are the 3 jobs that are currently offered through the hub. They're working on more. They previously were thinking about having an EV technician, but there was roadblocks in there and where they couldn't find a partner, for instance, towards the end of that process to offer that on-the-job training. So those are the 3 that they have currently down and have partners that they're working with for folks that want to transition to that part of the workforce.
So this CEJA is creating 3 jobs.
That's for this workforce hub. For other workforce hubs, it could be completely different jobs.
I see 3.
Mr. Gregg.
Yeah, that was going to be, I mean, I like the idea, but I don't know about paying people to go to school, but you know, let's say I want my son to go into one of these areas. And I'm going to say to him, you know, if there's not more than 3 jobs and there's 3 people in those jobs, or they create 3 each year, and 1,000 people want to get into this program, I don't see that they're going to have any work to do. HVAC, I think of the 3 is the only one that has legitimacy from a standpoint of an ongoing career that would make a livable wage. You know, if I'm a solar PV associate, not sure what that is. I don't see how I could make a living doing that unless I'm working for the state and the state's paying me, and that's a whole different ball of wax. Weatherization specialist, you know, if my kid came to me and said, I want to do that. So I like the idea, but I don't think there's any substance to the actual jobs. And if we got 1,000 people to go into this program, there aren't 1,000 jobs. So it's like, don't do this unless you want to be one of the 3 people who's going to get the job. So, you know, I think it needs more support from the state. The state created this idea. So I think the state needs to fund thousands of jobs for people to get in, because these could be great things to do. But currently, I go through this, other than the money I'm going to make in the going to school, I'm not going to make enough money to put a roof over my head or feed my family.
Mr. Penesis?
Yeah,
Oh.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say there was one that was left off of it. There's also building and home inspection as part of the different jobs.
Thank you.
So the training, the 176 hours of training isn't specific to those 3 jobs, correct? I mean, those skills can be utilized in a variety of other possible occupations that
Yeah,
this person would be taking.
Correct. The 176 hours is again the foundation, gives them the foundation to then move into taking on learning more about one of those 3 jobs if they want to take on that opportunity.
I have a question regarding the specifics of the grant by the state. Are there specific guidelines that we pay them? Is that the reason why? The $13 per hour? Because usually grants has specifics, guidelines that we have to follow, correct?
I don't believe it's anything from the county that y'all are paying them as far as I'm aware of, but I'm not entirely sure of the exact funding mechanism that the state put forth for this.
Okay. And
I can get you that answer though.
Okay, and I might have missed this, and because of the March 3rd deadline or start date, are we communicating with some of our local high schools for participants to help with this program?
I'm not aware exactly what College DuPage is doing in that regard, but I can get you that answer.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Strathman?
Yes, Austin, could you tell me, is the weatherization specialist, is that like insulation and that sort of thing, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe their current partner with that is through NICOR. They have an energy efficiency program that would be a part of this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I appreciate your time.
No
Thank you. Then moving on next to new business. I don't have anything for new business. Mr. Roth?
Really one is just a comment. I want to thank the environmental team for putting the presentations in the packet. It's nice we can read them ahead of time and come up with questions instead of craning our neck to see what they contain. And I'm, you know, one of my recommendations to the board is we request everyone to have the presentations in the packet ahead of time.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Hi, David Young. There was a presentation that was done at the admin committee meeting regarding, really regarding energy. And I thought it was interesting because it's definitely, should have been part of this committee, or at least it's definitely relevant. And they had brought up that we're going to be more, as a state of Illinois, is going to be more and more reliant on wind and solar going forward. And during the presentation in the admin committee, I forget the gentleman that did it. I'm looking at the, everyone should look at that. It was very,
Arnie Schrammel.
I'm sorry?
Arnie Schrammel.
Yes, it was very good. And thank you. And one of the concerns that I brought up to him, and he acknowledged it, it goes back to 2-3 weeks ago. Trump was talking about energy required for data centers because and this is the Biden administration started it. He's gonna, going through with it. They want to build all these data centers, for AI, and those data centers take an extreme amount of energy. I mean, extreme, to the point where Trump suggested that each data center have their own power plant next to it. So I bring this up because Arnie was telling us that Kane County is going to have these data centers. He said that at least there's
Already
2 of them in
does.
Aurora. Is it
Already does.
2 of them are in Aurora, and there's going to be more. And if we as a county are getting rid of everything and getting down to just simply being reliant on I'm going to say green energy that can be, very unreliable, what are we going to do? And this is something that is not going to happen today. I think it's a 2050 plan, but I mean, think about this, our kids are going to be, how are they going to even heat themselves in a week like today if we don't have power and all that other power is being used for the AI center? So I just bring this up, something to think about. I don't know what the answer is, but it's just interesting, all of this kind of coming together.
No, I appreciate the comments.
Thanks.
Mr. Roth?
There was an article a couple months ago. They're saying currently data centers are using 9% of the nation's electric power and forecasted to grow to 20 to 30%. And so that's why a lot of the companies that are building the data centers are looking at going nuke. Microsoft announced they're going to reopen the 1 3-mile-an-hour plant. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Amazon's looking somewhere out in Arizona or something to build a nuclear plant. So it actually may bring, on the upside, nuclear power back into the play, because that's the only type of power that can generate, the person doing the presentation mentioned the Facebook data center that's out in DeKalb is using 500 megawatt of power. I mean, that's a huge plant requirement. And so the other thing with data centers, you also need water. So you're limited where you can build them to.
And that was to the admin committee from
Yes.
this week. Thank you.
Yes.
I'll have to watch that. Mr. Penesis?
Yeah, I saw that too, David. It was very eye-opening. And I think honestly, what we're doing with that workforce hub is critical, because solar and wind are going to have to be part of the solution. Energy efficiency, weatherization, making sure windows aren't losing heat, those type of things. Energy efficiency is good. We need to improve that because of those data centers and the amount of energy that's going to take. So the diversification of solar, wind, utilizing all those things is critical, but then also energy efficiency, expanding that is all going to be part of the solution, because that's the future AI. I mean, we know where that energy is going to be going. 9%, probably going to increase.
Double.
Yeah, it's going to increase.
Double.
That's why we're going to have to
Probably.
Nuclear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other new business? Yes, ma'am.
So we have our next in-person climate action implementation team meeting. It is March 3rd at St. Charles Library from 5:30 to 8. I can send out, we had put in a Kane County Connects article recently. We're going to discuss kind of the 18 actions that we've been looking at, or 16, and what we've been doing with our teams and kind of the progress up to date, and then talk about kind of the next round and where we're going from here. So you're all welcome to join us, of course. And I can send out, the article link to you.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you. Yes.
I had emailed the group a few weeks ago. I just want to get a sense of who would be interested perhaps in going on a tour of the Hodgkins waste management recycling facility. Couple. I don't have a date. I was thinking of doing it on a Monday because of the lack of committee meetings on Mondays. But I will let you know ahead of time.
Is that different than the one we toured a couple months ago?
Well, it's owned by a different company and
So it is a different plan.
it's a different plant and no one actually knows how different it is because they make you sign a non-disclosure agreement to go look at it, but I still want to.
Show of hands or just to reach out to the committee one more time for,
It seems like about half. So,
I'm not on the committee.
Sure. Yeah, fine.
And
Claire,
how
I-
many of us want to go?
Yeah. Okay.
I went on the other one, so I'd like to go on this one just to compare how it's different,
Yeah, sure. Okay.
because it was, as long as I don't disclose. The first one, I learned a lot that I would have never guessed, like how dirty it is because of the cardboard powder.
Okay.
And the amount of plastic that's loose, running loose around the whole plant.
Okay.
Thank you.
well, thank you. All right. Any other new business? All right, seeing none. I don't have any comments. I'll be happy that Ms. Bates will be back next month. Reports placed on file. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move to place on documents on file.
Can I get a second? By Ms. Strathman, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. We don't need to go to executive session that I'm aware of. And then can I get a motion to adjourn?
I will motion to adjourn.
Second.